Hello, 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 everybody. We are going live today. This is our very first live for the day. I am so excited for the ladies that are joining me. So, without further ado, let me first introduce you to Miss Jessica. Jessica is a sound healer. Let me make her big. She's a sound healer, and her presentation isn't going live until Friday. So, you may not have been formally introduced to her, but I'm going to give her the floor so she can tell you who she is and why she's here.
Thank you, Joy. Hello, everybody. As Joy said, my name is Jessica Brandt, and I am a sound healer. I use astrology and all sorts of sound healing techniques to kind of help people to reconnect with who they are, right? I hold space, basically, for you to explore what the sound brings to you. Vibrations are in the universe. We're all made up of vibrations. And so tuning into that vibration can really help. Um, and specific as it is to grief, it can help us to tune into stuff that we don't always acknowledge with our mind or with our logical bodies. So I'm happy to be here and with this lovely group of speakers, and I hope that you all are enjoying the retreat so far.
Thank you. I see you, Christy. We are live. We are live. So if you're watching in the chat, say hello, introduce yourself, let us know that you're here because this is an interactive panel. Let me bring Ailie on. Hi, Ailie. Am I saying
Hi.
your name right? Because I know it's
You're
Ailie
saying
without an A.
thank you. No, I really appreciate that. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, let everybody introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are, your expertise. Let me make you big since it's three of us now. You know, I like to play with my settings, be a little fancy.
I love that. Hi, everyone. I'm a trauma-informed wellbeing and confidence coach. I actually originally got into, chronic illness mentoring, and that really kind of took me on this journey to then kind of expanding it to trauma-informed wellbeing and confidence. But I'm really, really passionate about all big emotions, all, the full roller coaster and experience of life that we all go on. So, yes, super excited for all the topics today and to jump into everything.
All right, so I like to just get started. We get straight to the point, and this panel is about grief is not always visible. All right, so before I go into the actual questions that I have planned, you guys are welcome to ask any questions that you might have. I don't know if you've ever met a confidence coach. I think that's pretty cool. So if you are somebody who struggles with confidence, sometimes it's not people look, we're talking about visibility, right? People look really confident, but they really have insecurities on the inside, or vice versa. Some people look meek, they might talk small, but they have all of the confidence in the world. So when we talk about grief, what does grief look like to you? Write in the comments what it looks like. And I want you to be completely honest, even if it doesn't look like what society says it looks like. What does it look like to you? So for me, the very first image that pops in my head is depression. You know that commercial where somebody's walking around with an invisible umbrella, or like it's a rain cloud that's just they're the only ones who it's raining on, and it's like nobody sees the rain, but they're just walking around with this rain cloud. And again, that kind of plays into the visibility versus invisibility, because some being in that feeling, walking in that light and not always having it on your face. You don't have to be crying to be sad. You don't have to like shrivel up to be scared, right? I can be scared right now. I could be nervous, but you may never know, because our feelings aren't always projected into our facial expressions and our behavior. So I want to ask you first, Ailie, what does grief look like to you?
I think for me, grief is a huge amount of physical loss. It's that sensation that you've lost something, that something is not with you. And I think this is the thing, grief can, come about in so many ways, but it's the sensations, it's the experience that you're having, that something is not quite aligned, something's not quite right, something that you've really cared about and that's been with you for a long time is no longer there. So it's that physical and sensational loss. That's, to me, I think what grief is summed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that grief is, because it's not always visible, and because what we're told is, to push big emotions down and to not acknowledge them. I think a lot of times grief is, yeah, that feeling that something's not quite right, or that feeling that just comes up out of nowhere. You can be going about your day, and then all of a sudden it hits you, and you feel like crying, and you don't know why. It's looking at a flower or seeing someone's favorite shop, and it's just that sense of loss that you don't always think about. It's just something in the back of your head, that's just always with you.
Raise your hand if you have pulled up to your job or went somewhere and just boohoo cried and then wipe your tears away and then got yourself together and got out of the car and went to do what you had to do. I literally did that just last week. So many times we put on this face, and it's not because we're trying to prove anything to somebody else, but things got to get done. We have to function. We have to keep going. We have parent teacher conferences that we have to show up for. We have grocery shopping that we have to do. Things like that need to get done. And like you said, it could be something as simple as a song that plays on the radio. I was saying I've seen you guys' presentations. If you have legacy level, you'll have early access to see it. But in Jessica's presentation, she's a sound healer. She's talking about the power of music and how memories can be attached to those things. And so I want to go ahead and see. I see a gaping hole that cannot be filled. My grief looks like a hole in my chest every day. I cry when I need to. Don't care what other people think. I love that for you, Christy. Yes, 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 yes. I love when people have the confidence to be able to express their emotions no matter what. And I love when other people allow people to express themselves without becoming uncomfortable or without trying to deflect from what's going on. Like I don't have to fix you and I don't have to dismiss you to be able to hold space for you. And so I love that, Christy. I definitely want to give you guys the opportunity to share. I see, Christy, you said that I lost my son 2020. He was also my boy, my best friend. He was 27 and died in my arms, dealing with acute PTSD and seeing a certified EMDR therapist. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. And that goes to what question I'm about to ask when it comes to grief not being visible, right? If somebody doesn't know you, right? They've never met you, they're just passing by. You don't look like you lost your son and that you're experiencing PTSD. It's not visible. You might look sad sometimes, you might be okay sometimes, but that is not something that we wear on our forehead. I don't wear, and this is not my personal experience, but I'm using it as an example. Like I don't wear a miscarriage on my forehead. I don't wear stillborn. Like we all have these experiences, heavy experiences that we're not introducing ourselves saying, hey, my name is Joy and this is my grief, but we need to learn how to navigate. So the first question that I want to ask you ladies is, from your perspective, how can people tune into the physical and emotional sides of grief that they may not recognize immediately? And let me know from your experience and your expertise, how can that show up? I'll start here.
That's a great question. I think that for me, in my experience and in dealing with some people, it's that getting past the egoic mind and getting past the logic of what grief should look like, what others tell you grief is. It doesn't always look the same, as you've said, and it's not always felt the same. So sometimes tuning into that can be as simple as allowing yourself the space to do that, taking time away and breathing, doing breath work or yoga, any kind of activity that will kind of get you out of your mind and into your body, because that's where you'll feel when something's not right, or where you'll feel, oh, that's where that grief is hiding for me. Once you can feel it, of course, then you can work with it and work through it and talk to some people about it. But for me, that's been the biggest thing, is getting past what our minds are telling us, either shouting, you're okay, get power through, or no, I'm not okay, and not telling you specifically why or how to fix that.
And what I like about the power of music is like you can blast the song, like just times, have it really, really loud playing in your car, in your house. And once you start saying the words and it's like you get into it, it connects you to why that song relates to you. It could be because you feel strong and powerful, or you're pissed off. Or, it could be different emotions, but I love, love, love how music connects us to that. So the same question goes for you, Ailie. Let us know how hidden grief can show up and how we can pay attention to it.
One of the biggest things that I've noticed with my clients is really them giving them the permission to feel. I think so much of our lives we've been told to keep things logical, to keep things, organized, and have this front of like how we're meant to look and project ourselves into society. So even just giving ourselves those small, tiny moments, like I will say to my clients, like literally every time you go to the bathroom in a work day, just check in with yourself, see how the sensations are sitting in your chest, your shoulders, your stomach. These are quite often like big places where we'll really feel emotions. And it's also giving that permission of just like, you're allowed to feel however you want to feel. Sometimes you don't always have to do anything with it. It's just that extra connection of being like, yes, in this moment, I'm connected to me, I'm in my body, I'm connected to the sensations that are going on. I even tell them, pull up an emotion wheel, because while it might be, grief might be at the forefront, there might be so many different bits that are also, because something that I think is so important is, it's like grief doesn't exist without love. Without love, without, having something that we deeply cared about at some point, grief doesn't exist. There is so much love within grief. So it's also, there have been moments of joy. There's been all of these emotions that have led us to this moment where we're now feeling the grief, but we have those other parts that still want to come up and out. Like, you could in 1 second be listening to that song and think about like a happy memory, and the next moment you might be feeling that grief. But it's about feeling all of it. It's about feeling the full spectrum, thinking about it as like not just like one color or like one shade. It's like all of these different shades, experiences, they're all happening within us, and being able to give space and permission to all of those different aspects is so, so important in this experience. And that's also, I think, really important with like taking steps, like when it is, because I think this is the other thing, grief can cling, right? Like, and it's not about, that we have to push ourselves further than we want to be or where we naturally are, but it can also be that experience of, can I feel into, the joy and the love as well as the grief simultaneously, and get better at flicking between the full spectrum that our body wants to, and not just like going into the grief and feeling like that's the only thing there, because it never is. There's always more than one shade, more than one color going on, more than one emotion within us at any one time. So I think all of this is a really important part of getting the full picture and the full experience.
Thank you. And I'm so happy you brought up the emotion wheel, because I don't want to null over that part. I literally put on there Google emotion wheel, because I want you to see, let's say you feel sad, right? But sad could be lonely. Sad could be like actual betrayal. Betrayal and lonely is two totally different feelings, but we are bundling up under sadness, and we can't really get to the root of how we're feeling. And it's okay, once, even if we can't change the fact that we're lonely because we miss this specific person or this specific thing. Being specific gives our brain and our body a way to kind of find solutions for us and make us feel better. But when we're not specific, we're tricking our brain to focus on one area versus what's really going on with us. So that is the power of an emotion wheel. It helps you to get specific in what you're feeling and finding the language to be able to better process what's going on. So I want to go back to the chat. I see Paula, and I love Christy. You validated Paula and said, I lost my son in August of 2022. And from day one, I have been transparent and refused to let people judge me in my moments. I'm so happy you guys showed up, because it's going to be somebody watching this who doesn't have the tenacity that you guys have to, one, be a part of a grief retreat, but then two, be able to be vocal and open. And that brings me to Miss Peaches. It says, I love this question. For me, I knew that I was suppressing my grief, or that I had some hidden grief, because after losing my mom, I avoided gospel music. It took me a while to listen to gospel music without tears. I still have those moments, but it's gotten much better. Right, right. So before I switch to the next subject, what would you say, Jessica, for those who the music and the vibrations and the sound, it seemingly is making me feel worse. I'm having to pour into this emotion. What do you say to people who are submitting to that, but they're scared of the feeling or being overcome by the emotions that sometimes music can bring?
Absolutely, a great question. It kind of goes back to what Aaliyah was saying, that I had read that quote, grief is love with nowhere else to go. It's like something has passed and you now have all this love that you feel that pain of. So A good way to do that with is, of course, with music. But if music is your cause of stress, maybe listening to a different kind of music, a different form of music, allowing yourself to be in that space, maybe setting aside time and allowing yourself 10 minutes to listen to that music alone and cry if that's what you need, or rage, if you're upset about whatever it is. Just being able to connect to the person in that way can be helpful. And like I said, even if you're listening to a different type of music, maybe something that they didn't particularly love, to kind of ease back into that, I think that can really help as well.
All right. So the next question is creating safe space for hidden grief, right? What practices do you recommend for people who, when they for people to process their grief when they feel that the need to hide it? So we have a lot of people on the call who don't feel the need to hide it, but for those who do, and it doesn't align with society's expectations of mourning, you just gave an example of setting aside a certain amount of time so that you can do and be however you need to be in that time, and being free. Because what I think is happening is that release, talking out loud, letting those emotions show up in their full, ugly, raw state. That is a release, and it gets it outside of the body. And once you get it outside of the body, then you have more control over those triggers, those times when it happens and you're not in control. So when you give it to yourself in moderation, it seems like it allows you to be better prepared. Because I know sometimes I want to talk about stuff and I don't want to cry. Like, I'm not worried about judgment. It's just I want to be able to make sure you hear what I'm trying to say. And you can't hear me if I'm overwhelmed with emotions. So I have to practice, or I have to put things in place to kind of get that out of my system. So when it's time for me to talk, I can say it without all of that stuff being bottled up.
I think the first thing that's really important when it comes to like anything to do with safe spaces is really looking at where you already feel safe. I think, and getting specific in the places that you feel safe. Okay, maybe you don't feel like it's safe to process grief with everybody. Maybe there's one person, or maybe it's just your dog or your pet rabbit or something that like you feel okay, and it's like you build off of that. Like a lot of the times as well, for a lot of my clients, like they don't feel safe to feel their emotions at all. And I'm like, okay, well, where anywhere in your life? And like sometimes they'll say, it feels safe to process emotions if there's a movie on. Maybe you don't feel like bringing something up, but maybe you can watch a movie that has some of the themes that are going on in your life, and then you pause the movie at some point just to be like, look, this is actually this. I really relate to what's going on here. That can feel in a lot of ways a lot less vulnerable than maybe just bringing the topic up without anything else. There's so many. Or maybe like, even as you were saying, like with music, maybe you're listening to a song and you're like, oh no, this is what I really relate to. So I think there's so many different ways that you can make emotions also more accessible to allow other people to come into your world, into what's going on with you, that don't feel like, okay, I just have to tell like my whole life story of what's going on right now, because that is a huge leap to be able to take, and that also isn't safe, taking that huge leap outside of your comfort zone. So how can you take those baby steps towards being in your authenticity, being in community with other people, being able to create more safe spaces in your life? I think the first place is always having that safe space with yourself. So really, like, if it's the only place that you feel fully safe to feel all your emotions is the shower, start there. See if like maybe you can extend that to your bathroom. See if you can extend that to your house. Like, really think about where it is that you already feel safe, and start to take those stepping stones to how you want it to look, how you want your authenticity to be spread into the world.
And I see in the comments, Christy, first you said that I don't have family, so it is lonely. But then you say, but you donate your time to a cat shelter, so you have a place to love. Love that. I love that you were able to find somewhere that gives you comfort, and the ability to, like you said, donate. You're doing something for them, but they're also doing something for you. That reciprocity. I think about when you guys talk about movie, I thought about someone making a prayer closet. And like sometimes it's like the little smallest place in the room, but that's your place where you could go in there and you could scream. You can put little sticky notes, reminders, things that is relevant to you and your experience, but be very intentional about what you're exposing yourself to. Social media has a good side where you have these private groups and you have these places where you're able to meet new people or stay connected with the people that you love and care about. But then you have to understand the algorithm is set up to give you things that you are attracted to. So if you click a link and it's like this horrible or sad or emotionally like a full of emotional thing, then they're going to start showing you other things like that, and now you're down this spiral of seeing all of this sad things that you don't have control over your timeline anymore. The people that you really want to see, you're not seeing. So be intentional about what you're focusing, what articles you're clicking on, what statuses you're commenting on, because AI is reading that and saying, oh, she's interested in positive affirmations. Once I started watching these little workout videos, now all of my suggested content is healthy foods, working out. And it's not even trying to sell me anything. It's just exposing me to what they think is going to keep me on the platform longer. So you have to not only focus on your network, but focus on what you're interested. Actually, look up a hashtag, put something in the search box that is interesting to you, something new, like we just talked about, the emotional wheel. You type that in Facebook, now you're going to get all of the different resources and things that is going to help you process your emotions. Don't just do it on Google. Do it where you spend the most of your time. If you like scrolling on social media, and it could be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whichever platform that you like, be able to be intentional about what it's feeding you. And then if you're not a social media person, then when you go on forums, when you go places, sometimes your local library will have a listing of things you can do in the community that is going to give you community, give you a new network, give you people that are like-minded, that are going to be able to support you while you are grieving. All right, so I just wanted to give that. And I love, Tara, you said I use writing poetry. For me, that is where my feelings just flow. Miss Peaches said that's a great idea. Some people think of the library and they think of like the dinosaur idea of a library, like, oh, just go there to be quiet and read. No, the library has like, they're trying to revolutionize and make it. You could go record a podcast at the library. You could rent a hotspot and a laptop and learn about business. Like, it's a world of possibilities. And I say the library because it's a free resource for you to be able to do these things. But obviously, if you tap into some churches have outreach programs where they try to connect everybody to what's going on in the community. So it doesn't have to be just super, super religious, like you got to join that church to go on their Tuesday night community event to see what kind of resources they have. Being open to those things, looking at the marquees and the signs while you're driving. Oh, they're having a community event. Let me check it out and see what's going on. That's a good way to get information locally on what's relevant to you. Doctors are being empowered with resources these days too. Yes. Thank you for adding that, Miss Asha. That is absolutely true. So be more open-minded, but pay attention. Pay attention to what's out there and making sure that you pull what you need and leave the stuff that you don't need right where it's at. So another thing that I wanted to ask you guys is about supporting others in silent grief. Silent grief. So sometimes, for me, I said this yesterday in the live, like, I realized that it takes me a long time to process things. So when I put that in relation to my grief, like, a long time could be a few days, it could be a few months, it could be a few years. Obviously, when you're in a relationship with somebody, I can't say, well, we'll deal with this a few years from now, right? You can't say that, but you can understand if something comes up later that was a trigger from something that happened years ago. It's not that I'm holding on to the past. I'm still processing. How does this affect me now? Do I feel safe? Do I feel secure? Do I feel confident to be able to bring certain things up because I'm tying these two things together, and now I'm giving you the opportunity to alleviate that stress that because once you're in your head, you go down that rabbit hole, right, of ideas and things that are not serving you. They're not motivating you or fixing whatever problem it is. So the question that I want to ask the panelists is, what advice would you give someone supporting a loved one whose grief isn't outwardly visible, but is deeply felt?
I would say that it generally takes longer than we think it will. If you haven't gone through it yourself, there's a lot of times you won't think about it, but a general rule or a general thing to think about is a year, because there's going to be things in that time that happen for the first, right? The first birthday without this person, the first anniversary, the first holiday here. And so you might lose someone 1 month and people go about their lives and think, oh, it's been 3 months, 6 months, that's plenty of time. But not thinking there's still going to be firsts the rest of that year. So I think if you're supporting someone that's going through grief, just continuing to show up, continuing to be there for them and to hold space. It doesn't mean that you have to always be in their face about it. If they don't want to share, that's fine. But letting them know that you're there and that you're open no matter when they have an issue, it's going to be really helpful. It's going to be really supportive. And I think that will allow them, like you said, Joy, when they get in their head and start spiraling down a rabbit hole, that allows them to know, no, I can be open to this person. You know, this person has been there for me and they don't judge. So staying curious, I guess, and open as opposed to judgmental about how much time has passed or hasn't passed is really a great way to do that, just to show support.
I think that one of the things that can be very easy whenever we're looking to support or help people is to make things open-ended, like if there's anything I can do, but that always puts the onus on the person who is grieving, the person who is struggling. So something that I always say is like, keep things specific. You can keep them open-ended, but keeping things specific. Like I've got some time on a Tuesday, every Tuesday. Do you want me to just like do your shopping while I'm doing my own? Like keep something that's actually concrete that they can opt in or opt out, rather than it's so open-ended that they have to go away and think, because they're just not going to get back to you. So I think that's something that's really important. But again, that consistency of just being there, if it is something that you can do, even if it isn't, like consistency, I think people often think of as like it has to be every day or it has to be every other day or something. It can be once a week, it could be once a month even, like, but you just doing it with, you know, that certainty that it's this time of the month or it's this time of week or whatever that looks like for you, that this person's going to be there. That is going to create so much safety for that person that they can really ease into, okay, there's something that's predictable in my life right now, especially when you are going through so much can feel unpredictable, so much feels like it can be that roller coaster. So knowing that they have that predictability, even that in itself is bringing support. And in those moments, you know, asking questions, you know, it can be relevant to what you're doing, but also asking questions that have a little bit of space, so that it's, again, like not making it so open. Like I don't know about any of you, but the question that I hate most in the world is how are you? When I'm really when I'm going through it, somebody asking me how am I, like, no, I don't want that to be asked. So ask something that's specific with room for maneuver, I think can be really, really helpful. Like even like, oh, the like something super simple, like how the weather's been like this way, like how are you feeling in the weather, like they can be like, oh yeah, the weather's been kind of gray and like that's also how my mood is. They can add on to it, but like keeping something even that little bit more specific can again create that more safety for them to open up if they want to, but also they can just keep it purely on the weather if that's all they want to do as well. I think these kinds of moments can really build up that like it's okay for you to show up exactly how you are. And even I think something that's really underrated is being open with what's going on with you. I think that while not like taking up all the room, you know, when somebody walks into a room and you can feel them pulling all of the energy, all the emotion, not that we're doing that, but sometimes I think it can be really helpful if someone's like, oh, like, yeah, I didn't have the best morning this morning, you know, like everything was just feeling that bit overwhelming. And, you know, that I think opening up from our point of view can also give space for that other person to feel like, oh yeah, this is a place where I can be vulnerable, and it doesn't have to feel like it's taking up every bit of energy, but there is that space to do so. I think that could be really helpful too.
I want to go back to where you say asking somebody, how are you? Like the first thing yells in my mind, how do you think I am? Like when you know what's going on with the person, you know that it's almost now that I'm more grief aware. Like it's so embedded in our social like setting that you just say, hey, good morning, how you doing? And people don't even answer the question. They just say good morning and keep walking. Like they don't even really think of it as a real question. Like, no, for real, how are you doing today? I really want to know. And sometimes when you don't know what the person is going to say, you think that, you know, it's a regular day. I'm just asking you. And they actually say, well, actually, today is the anniversary of such and such, or on my way to work, such and such happened. These are the things that you got to be prepared to receive when you ask that question too. A lot of times we ask it not thinking that somebody's going to actually be real with us and tell us what's going on with them. And then we're talking about resources. We are at the halfway mark of our live, and I want to talk about the ones that you guys shared in your presentations. You guys, the presentations are 20 minutes, right to the point, very actionable. But believe me when I tell you, it's very hard for us to give you everything we want to give you in just a 20-minute mark. And so one thing that Jessica did in hers was an actual humming exercise. And I want to say right now while we're live, like, please fully lean into it and do it. Don't just watch her walk you through it, but actually take the steps, close your eyes, submit into that exercise. Because what I've learned, Jessica, this is my first time telling you, I talked to my therapist and I was like, I just watched a humming exercise, and I tried that when I was having a hard time and it didn't work. And then she was like, well, Joy, sometimes you have to do 5 cycles of it. You can't just do it once and then think that you're going to feel good. You have to do it, hum through a whole entire song. You have to figure out a way to like give your body time to process the feeling and the mindfulness exercise that you're trying to do. So don't think because you try something and it's not working immediately, because we have this instant gratification society that we live in, that means it's not for you. In reality, you have to do it very not only intentionally but over enough times. Maybe the first time you don't do it, but once you make it a habit, more and more that'll be your go-to. Because how many of you, I literally noticed this about myself. I got really upset and I literally just started humming on my own. Like it wasn't even something that I thought to do. I was just trying to calm myself. I start rocking and I start humming, and it was just a immediate reaction to me trying to self-soothe. So I see Asha said, yes, give yourself time to process is good. So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of elaborate on that too, Jessica, but I wanted to share my experience and what I know happens when we have these retreats where we ask people to do things that might be out of their comfort zone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. And I think I said that or tried to say it in the speech, that you'll have to, give yourself that time to do it, because that's something I've noticed a lot with sound healing in general. We're told to be quiet and to sit down and to fit into boxes so much of our lives, that to say, I'm going to take up this space, this time, and use it for myself can feel really uncomfortable sometimes. But our bodies they need that time to process. Like you said, especially humming helps the vagus nerve. So if anyone watches my speech, you'll get more of that. But depending on how far into that fight or flight response you are, it will take a little bit of time to calm it back down, to get off that ledge. And so any of these techniques, sitting, being in a safe space, anything that we've mentioned today, yes, it will take time. And to be patient with yourselves, to allow that to be. There is no, just like with grief, where there's no, okay, a weekend and I'm done. There's no deadline with that. That's the same way with these techniques and any kind of practices that you're going to use. There's no deadline that you'll say, yep, I've used it, I'm done. It's the intention behind it. It takes that time. They say it takes 21 days to create a habit. So, I mean, even with that timeline, like, give yourself that space and allow it. Be okay with taking time.
And Jessica, while you have the floor, tell people what a sound bath is, because that's something new that I learned in the grief space. That is a healing practice. Talk about what that looks like, because I'm a visual thinker, so sound bath, like do you have to be in a bathroom taking a shower to be able to do this? Like, give the people a clear explanation of what that is, so that if they're interested in that, they can do some more research.
Sure, absolutely. So a sound bath is where you are bathed in sound, basically. So a lot of times you'll go into this room and there's blankets and pillows and you get comfortable, you get cozy, and you let your body rest, basically. You go into kind of a meditative state, and they dim the lights. There'll be candles a lot of times, good scents that help with that. And many times the sound baths are used with singing bowls and the different tones of the singing bowls. And so someone will be playing these singing bowls or gongs, basically any kind of sound that will bathe you in their vibrations and allow you and your body, your nervous system to kind of calm down and to bring that in. And so it'll be the different tones, the different hertz, taking you on this journey through sound. And it's pretty transformative, but even that, sound baths are most of the times minimum 30 minutes and generally an hour and a half, just to give you an idea of the range, because it takes that long to kind of ease in, to say, yes, I'm safe in this space. It's okay for me to close my eyes and take this time for myself, bathe in this sound.
I love it, love it, love it, love it. And what you just said that resonated with me is, like you said, with the different instruments, like it gives layers to the sound. So when you listen to a recording, it's much different than when you're listening to live instruments play. And so I love that like you just said, you're literally bathing because you can hear that the clink and the vibrations and all of those things that come with it, besides just the music that gets made. So she says, Asha says, sound is such a powerful healing tool. Christy says, humming makes your mind stop reeling. Yes, yes, yes. And then we go back to, yes, I asked how are you in this moment, or how are you feeling today? So I want to go to Ailie's presentation. Her talk is called Grief is a Mirror. And I'm so happy I asked you to talk on that subject, because you nailed it. Like, imagine that you are in, just a lot of you said my grief feels like a hole. Like, that you guys have these intense definitions of what your grief feels like, right? And when you look in the mirror, we're talking about how grief is not always visible. Like, you see something that other people are not going to see. We are looking at the same image. Our reflection is what everybody else sees, but you see something because you know what you're going through, and so in Ailie's presentation, she shows what you can learn about yourself while you're grieving. You're going through this experience, the things that you can pay attention to, and then how you can take action on what is coming up, because it's showing you your true self, the self that everybody's not going to be able to see. Even somebody living in your own house may not be able to resonate and connect with that, because if I'm looking in the mirror, I'm looking almost into the depths of my soul. My husband's looking at me. He's looking at the woman he's married, the mother of his children. He's looking at my facial expressions. He's looking at what I'm offering him. But when you look in the mirror, you're thinking about what's in your mind. You're not really. Some of us, they might look and say, "Oh, I don't like how this looks." Like, they might get specific on the surface level. But I love how you went way beneath the surface level. So, is there anything that you want, not only just to summarize your presentation, but something that you really want to drive home that you may not have been able to have time to do during the 20-minute segment? Please share that with us.
I think something that is so important is that while grief can feel like this experience that is, forced upon us in so many ways, right? Like, it's not as if we sign some contract and we're like, yes, I am signing up for this experience of grief today. No, we don't do that. But I think that grief can be such an experience of healing for ourselves, deep healing that we might have needed for our whole lives. We might have needed certain things mirrored back to us. We might have needed certain awarenesses that we've never had. Not that it had to come in that experience, but that is the way that it's happened, sometimes very unfortunately. And I think that something that I say to people so often is how we deal with experiences that are unwanted gets to be how we deal with everything. So yes, we might recognize that, we like this experience is not something that we want. It's not something we want to be going through. However, how we're able to process, how we're able to actually sit with the awareness, how we're able to witness ourselves in this moment, how we're able to connect with ourselves on that deeper level, that gets to be skills and tools that we take throughout our whole lives in so many different areas. And I think this is something else that I find really, really important, and something that can be almost something quite hopeful, is that the easier that you're able, or not even the easier, the way that you're able to navigate grief really does get to be how you navigate the rest of your life. When you have like a really big goal that you want in the future, when you have a disappointment and you want to pick yourself back up, it's experiences like grief that allow us to build those muscles of resilience, that muscle of connection, that muscle of I actually have my own back and I can do this, like that really deep self-trust. These are the things that we're actually creating in the moments that grief is coming up, where we're able to process them, where we're able to sit with them, witness and experience the full thing that we're meant to, the full learnings that we're meant to take. And I think that is something that's really, really important, something that I wanted to really touch on when I was doing my talk.
I think that we spend a lot of time, sorry, I'm trying to make myself big there. I think that we spend a lot of time learning and energy into building relationships with others, but we don't always give ourselves that same time and energy to learn and build relationships with ourselves. And that's what I think this talk is about. Like, grief is not visible. It's not just about what you don't see in others, but what you're not even seeing and taking the time to learn about yourself. It's crazy to me how little self-awareness there is in the world, because we're just so busy. We're busy being there for other people, listening to what the world demands of us. And we think self-care is just about going to a spa and looking and grooming ourselves, but it's really about taking the time to pay attention to the way our body and our behaviors play out with the stimuluses that we get on a regular basis. Like, all of those things, when you start seeing yourself being jittery, pay attention to what's causing that. A lot of us just will drink a coffee, or we just figure out a way to numb that because we don't have the time or capacity or interest to actually tap into that and actually lean more into that. So I want to encourage you to take the time, especially you that are grieving, watching this, to be more curious on your own personal journey. How are you doing? Ask yourself, like, actually sit and say, how am I doing today? Because some days you're going to say, I'm actually doing better today than I was doing this time last week. What's changed? Being able to have those reflections is so powerful, so important. So I have one final question for each of you before we close out. We're actually about to do our next live, which is called Grief Does Not Discriminate. And one of the first questions that I'm asking, I feel like it's appropriate to ask you, Ailie, is how do trauma and grief intersect? Right? Because they're two separate things. And because you're a trauma informed and confidence coach, I really think that would be great for you to tell people that answer, and then tell people how to stay connected with you, work with you, what offerings you have before we close out.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that is kind of what I touched on it very briefly earlier, but I think one of the big things with trauma is stuckness. You're stuck in a loop, in a cycle that you can't get out of. That is very much, it's that physical and mental, I'm trying to move forward, or I'm trying to, and it's like, that is the whole thing with, even if we're talking about PTSD, it's you're being pulled back to certain memories, certain experiences. And I think that this is the thing, is like the depth of grief. Just because you experience grief doesn't necessarily mean that you experience trauma. So if we are able to, build up, the support systems, move through our, grief and feel our emotions, it doesn't mean that they have to stay stuck. It doesn't mean that we have to, feel pulled back to moments that have passed, like again and again and again. We do get to build in mindfulness. We do get to build in safety, even with grief being there. We do get to have, again, what I was talking about, the full spectrum of emotions that are here. And I think that is one of the things that's really important in not getting stuck, is keeping hands on both, keeping hands on the love that you're feeling, being able to bring yourself back to the present, that yes, I'm feeling all of these things, but if I look around myself, nothing, like there's no lion chasing. I say this all the time with my clients, there's no lion chasing me in this very second. There's no, like whatever experience that brought in the grief, that isn't necessarily happening right now in this second. So even just being able, the most simple things, being able to look around yourself and being like, looking as if you're brand new on this planet right in this second, having exercises, building up that muscle of presence, of, you know, witnessing what's going on right now, that is something that can be really, really important when it comes to grief, that it doesn't, you know, then actually tip into that like more difficult levels of stuckness and needing to experience that. And I think that is the thing as well, is like really being the more open that you are to deepening that connection with yourself, there's nothing that does not help, and there's always safety to be had in that deeper connection if we're able to do that. So I think that's really important. In terms of connecting with me further, I am really loving Threads at the moment. I don't know about any of you, but I am obsessed with Threads. It is my platform. It is Instagram is very much it's my new side thing. I don't even look at it nearly as much, but Threads is my love at the moment. So yes, if anybody does want to connect with me on Threads, I'm there pretty much all day, every day, talking about all the big emotions, also just day-to-day life. And I'm also completely open to any questions. Obviously, I'll be in the community and everything like that. But if you have more personal like conversations or questions that you want to have, absolutely send me a DM on Instagram. And also, you know, if you're interested in like further support or anything like that, you can find all my links on Instagram too. So yes.
And what is your name on Threads? Because I was going to put it as a banner.
At Ailie Steele is literally just my name. I'm Ailie Steele everywhere. So AILIE Steele, yeah, everywhere.
All right. Thank you, Ailie. I appreciate you. I love the things that you were able to share. Y'all, please check out her presentation tomorrow. It will be available for 24 hours. And again, her contact information will be listed right next to her presentation. I have a comment coming up before I go ahead and ask you your last question, Miss Jessica. It says that I love that point, Joy. I felt frustration out of nowhere, and instead of leaning into why, I found myself in the past ignoring it or burying it into other things. Self-awareness can definitely help with the healing process of grief, because if I allow myself to feel what I'm feeling and not avoid it, I reach the next level. A lot of us stunt our own grief by not having the sense of self-awareness. Look at you summarizing the point that I just made. I appreciate that. I don't even need to add anything else. She said what she said. And so I see you, Christy. All trauma has grief, but not all grief has trauma. Love that. And so I wanted to ask you, Jessica, because you're in the space of sound, of healing through music, through sounds, through vibrations, and I want you to share how the Substack that you're sharing as your gift, your free gift, like tell us about that. And like, because I don't know anything about Substack. So let us know like the modalities that are available to be able to tap into that part, because all I know is Pandora, YouTube. Like I don't know what's really out there and what's available to me. I think now I probably might go on Eventbrite to find like a sound bath or something. Like that might be another resource. But you, I feel like, will be able to really direct us on where the good stuff is at.
Well, the thing about sound is that it's going to be different for everybody. And so what the Substack is actually just an article that I've put together of different frequencies, hertz, that will help with certain areas of trauma. They work with your chakras, work with that vibration to help alleviate some of that stress, alleviate some of the grief. And so it comes with a link to a Spotify playlist, I believe it is. And then there's also some links in there to YouTube. But I will put with that a caveat that it's not like you can just say, well, I'm going to listen to 423 hertz and then I'll be fine. It doesn't work like that. Grief is very personal, as you all know. So while music can help with that, it does help to also integrate everything that Aaliyah and Joy have said today. And, you know, being okay with being self-aware and diving into that safe space and saying, okay, this frequency really works for me, or no, this one doesn't work. You're going to be drawn naturally to certain things and not to other things. You might really love a sound bath that uses, you know, the crystal singing bowls, but really not like one that uses gongs. You know, you might want to try tuning forks, or you might try singing because that gives you that sense of control. You're making the vibrations from your body. So yes, Eventbrite is a great place, or even just Googling where can I find a sound bath in my area. They're becoming more and more common. So you should be able to find one in person. Those are absolutely wonderful resources. If you want to do one-on-one work, you can always work with me, or again, search for sound healers in your area. That would be helpful with that. My site is Cosmic Chord with J, or you can just search Jessica Brandt. I'm on Threads and Instagram mostly as well, just because, yeah, I love Threads. I'm with you. Um, so yes, that's where you can find me, and I'm always happy to answer questions or point you in the right direction if you're like, hey, I really kind of want to do this type of sound healing. Who do I go to? I want to do it in person or any of that. I'm happy to share that because I really believe that sound helps. I mean, there's so much proof about the vibrations helping to remove the trauma blockages that we've held on to, right? And to help us move through that. So I just, yeah, happy to share that with anyone.
I think that there's a spiritual connection that comes with sound. That's really like, even I've learned about the deaf community and how they still put music on the highest level and put the headphones because the vibrations that come from the speakers does something to them. Being able to step out of your comfort zone, like my husband has started liking country music. And at first I was like judging him a little bit. Because he'll play it in the car, we'll be driving. I'm like, Brian, I don't want to hear this. Put on the gangster rap. Like, and it's I love what I love about him is that he is not confined to what you think he might like or look like. Like you're never gonna know what you're gonna get just by looking at him. And so allow yourself, try to listen to some rock music. Some of the rock songs, the lyrics, the country music, they are good with lyrics. Like they tell stories. They have so much emotions, especially grief. Like we talk about in my community gospel, but we also have other genres of music that might connect with you on a soul level. Beyonce just opened up into this industry, and everybody has their opinions about whether she belongs or whether she should get an award or whether all of these things. But I'm so proud that at the end of the day, she says this is a part of her culture. This is something that she wanted to do. Beyonce could do whatever Beyonce want to do, and and I love that for her. And I think that some of you have that spirit on this call. So even if you're watching the replay, please still comment. Please still share. These ladies will be and I will be reaching out with them to say, hey, somebody had a really cool question. Make sure you check that out. But they'll be at least throughout today, well, over the 3 days, because like I said, Ailie's presentation is tomorrow, but Jessica's presentation goes live on Friday. So I just want to make sure that you stick around because it's going to keep going. Like, even though we got some good talks today, I wanted to start off with some to let you get a full range of what we plan on discuss throughout the week. So thank you, ladies. We are about to go live in about 7 minutes on our next subject. Grief does not discriminate. Make sure that you're on YouTube, or you could just go to the next call, or you're in the Facebook group so that you can just click the link and watch it with us. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I appreciate you. I see some of our guests are saying thank you. We appreciate you, and we look forward to connecting with you moving forward. Bye.